Thank you, Michelle. And I forgot to press record before we started, so I'm going to start that right now so that we can share that back out afterwards. As Michelle has noted, my name is Charter Morris. I'm Director of International Student and Scholar Services here at the University of Alabama, and Casey is with me. Casey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Casey. I am the CVIS coordinator here, so do the I-20, so I'll be working with all of you, if I haven't already, on getting your documents in and processing your I-20s.
So we have a presentation now. It's more about the process of getting your I-20 and getting your visa, and then kind of what to expect and next steps for getting here and preparing for life here at the University of Alabama. So with that, I wanted to kind of go over some basics with you. Of course, our office handles the visa support for international students and faculty and staff at the University of Alabama. We also provide some support for the spouses and family that come with our students. Many of our students are married or have children, and so their families come with them. So we do the F2 and J2 visa support for our F1 and J1 students. You can always get in touch with us simply by emailing at international@ua.edu. Or you can visit our website. We've got extensive information there for incoming students and for resources in the community. And once you arrive, of course, as a student, for maintaining your status. We are open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. till 4:45 p.m. We do not work on weekends. And of course, we close when the university has holidays, although I don't think we have another holiday here at the university until spring break, and then not again until May. So usually when you have a university closure, if you contact us by email, you'll get an auto reply letting you know about our next date that we will be reopened. If you ever do have questions, please reach out. Again, we're not the admissions office and we're not the scholarships office, so we will have to refer you back to those offices for questions related to any admissions related thing or scholarships. Again, I did mention our website is got a lot of information for you. You can find that very simply at international.ua.edu/ISSS. Or you can go to our shortened URL is.ua.edu, and that will land you there. So what we want to do to kind of go over the basics as admitted students is how to get your I-20, and then I will carry you into how to get your visa and kind of next steps for arrival. But I'll start it off with Casey, who does all the processing for newly admitted students' I-20s.
Okay. And Charter, if I miss anything, please feel free to jump in. Okay, so when you're getting your visa, you're either going to get the I-20, which is what most of you are going to get, unless you're on like a government sponsorship. You're not going to need the DS 2019, or if you're an exchange student. So most of you, if not all of you, will get the I-20 in order to get your visa. What you'll need to do though is to submit the I-20 request form along with the documents that we'll go over in just a second. And then I'll evaluate them. If they're good, we will issue your I-20, and then you can go and take that to your visa interview. Okay, so the documents that you'll need to get your I-20, you'll need to submit to this ISSS secure portal. We'll need a copy of your admission letter, preferably the official letter that you get that's not an email. Usually it's a PDF form that we like to have. The I-20 request form, just filled out with all of your information, your financial information, etc. Your proof of funding. So that can either be a scholarship letter from the university, personal funds as well, or if you have multiple sources of funding, then just submit just a bank statement. We don't need the whole thing. We just need either like a letter from your bank saying that you have this much, or either just like the first page of a bank statement that shows like the amount that you have. We don't need to see the full history that you had over the year. A lot of students submit that, and that's fine, but just to make it a little bit easier, we do ask that you just try to make it a short financial guarantee. We'll also need a copy of your passport. When we're filling out your I-20, we're going to go by exactly what's on the passport. I know sometimes you have other names that you either use or don't use, but in order to make it match, we'll have to have the I-20 look exactly like your passport. And then if you are in the US right now and you're, say, studying at another university and you're going to transfer here, we'll need to have a copy of your current F1 visa. Or if you're an F2 and are going to travel and then come back in as an F1, we'll need to have a copy of that as well. So processing times, right now we have a lot of requests, a lot of applications. So just be aware that it's going to take about a week from us getting your documents to evaluating them and hopefully either communicating with you what you need or to let you know that your I-20 will be given to you soon. So one thing to be aware of too is the deadlines. So in order to let you have enough time to go to your visa appointment, get your visa, I know some countries, they have quite a backup with visa appointments and it's difficult to get appointments. Pay attention to these deadlines that we have here. So for instance, if you're going to come in summer, classes start May 30th, we'll need to have your I-20 request submitted to us by April 28th. Same for fall, classes start August 23rd, and you'll need to have everything submitted for July 14th, spring 24, January 10th start date, so a December 8th deadline to get in your I-20 request. If you do come from a country that you think you'll have a lot of problems getting it, a visa appointment, please make sure to submit as soon as possible. And we will get to those as soon as we can. Okay, so like I said, most of you are going to be F1 students on the I-20. If you are a J1 student, either in a non-degree exchange program or government-sponsored program, then you will get the DS 2019. If you're unsure about it, the best thing to do is just contact our office and we can talk with you about this, but almost all of you are going to be F1. Okay. So when you're filling out your forms, make sure that you put everything that's on your passport. So here we have Big Al, elephant. So even though Big Al only goes by Big Al, we still need to have elephant as the last name on there. All of your information, your birth date, and make sure that your passport is valid. When you're putting your information in, be aware that in the US, we use a month, day, year. So we'll say January 30th, 2001. So we don't do it day, month, year. Okay, if you have a spouse or a child that you'll be bringing with you, we'll need to make sure that we issue them an F2 or J2 visa or I-20. So you'll need to make sure that you submit their passports. And with that, it's an additional $5,000 per dependent. Right now, the financials that we'll get to in a second are $51,662 that you'll need to show yourself. But if you have a spouse that's coming with you, you'll need an additional $5,000 to that, and per child, $5,000. Okay, so finances. You can see a breakdown of this on the I-20 and our website, but current costs right now are $51,662 that you'll need to show for. This includes the tuition for the fall semester and spring semester right now, $15,730 each. That does not include summer tuition. That's only if you're coming in the fall. Personal expenses, living expenses, and then all the fees that you'll encounter, international fee, college fees, course fees, and your health insurance. So if you are coming in summer, that amount will be increased to $66,702. So the reason that it's more there is because we have to show an additional $15,040 for summer tuition that's not included in the price of the I-20. So also remember too, if you have dependents, you'll need to add 5,000 per dependent to this number here. Okay, so for funds, we accept, so when you're showing your proof of funding, university funds, so a scholarship, you guys aren't graduate students, so these wouldn't apply to you, graduate assistantship or graduate fellowship, but any scholarship, if you have multiple scholarships, we can include that. Personal funds, so if you have money in your name from your bank account, you can show it to us. We have a list of sort of like on the I-20 form, things that are acceptable and things that are not. So what we're really asking for is liquid funds that we can see. Family funds, so or sponsor funds. If you have sponsors, someone who will sponsor you, we'll just need to see that they, number one, have a bank statement that has enough in there. So if you have a scholarship, but they need to cover your living expenses, then we'll just need to see the amount of living expenses. If they are going to cover the entire time you're at the university, then we'll need to see $51,662 from them. We do also ask that they complete the, if your sponsor is someone other than yourself, you'll need to complete the certification of financial resources with your signature, your CWID, your name, and then have either your bank with the financial institution section or your family sponsor fill out this part of the I-20 request form, saying if they are authorizing that their funds will be used for your education. If you have other funding, such as a government-based scholarship or a private scholarship, education loan, we do accept that too. So you would just have to submit that, and we need to make sure that when we see that, if it covers, your living expenses, or does it only cover your tuition? Does it cover your health insurance as well, or will you need to have another funds to cover that? Okay, if you're already in the US studying in another institution and you want to transfer here, we'll just need you to complete section 4 of the I-20 request form. You only need to do this if you are transferring. If you're not transferring from a school at the in the US, don't worry about this form part. So we'll just need your information of the school that you're attending, the date that you want to transfer your CVIS record to us, and then you'll need to give our school code to the DSO that's at your current institution.
And I believe I can take over at this point. So a lot of people have questions about the I-20, and just to kind of go over a little bit of this, we do have a very good page that breaks down each of the sections of the I-20, so you understand the information that has been included in there, how the degree or major is listed. One of the questions we often get is, the name of my major at the University of Alabama doesn't match the major that's listed on the I-20. And so this does a great job of explaining this information, and we're going to share these slides out with the participants later so that you can get to this. But if you go to our main I-20 request page, you can find that links to this so that you can kind of go through that. The explanation about the majors is the federal government, the United States government, sets the names of every major and the associated code with it. And so while we might call, a degree major mechanical and materials engineering, according to the government, it is materials engineering. So it may not match exactly what your major is here. It's perfectly okay. I can promise you that whatever's listed is properly listed. But that will give you a good overview of that information. Most of the important things are what is your major, the I-20 report date, session start date, and anticipated end date, and then your SEVIS ID number. For those of you who would get a DS 2019, your document looks a little differently. We have that information on our same page about obtaining your I-20, DS 2019 and your visa. And that just kind of goes through it. It's organized a little bit differently. It's a 2-page document, but it has basically the same details on there. What I wanted to do is talk about what is next. SEVIS fee is really the next step. So once we've issued an I-20, what we will be doing is sending you that I-20 electronically, and with the SEVIS ID number, our school code, and instructions on these next steps. And really that first next step is the SEVIS fee. For those of you who will be applying as F1 students, the SEVIS fee is $350. For those who are applying as J1 students, if you're coming on an exchange program, or if you're under a government scholarship that requires the J1 visa, the fee is $220. The applications are done through the same website. Now, be aware that when you go to this website, it doesn't look like a government website, other than the fact that it has official government, website all over it, but it is a .com website, fmjfee.com. That is the actual website for paying the SEVIS fees. So when you go on there, you'll start to pay your I-901 fee. You'll fill out some basic information about yourself and include information from the form, the I-20, including your SEVIS ID number and the school code listed on the I-20, which is here, and it's on our website. You'll get to a section where you can pay that fee. It can be paid by credit card, but some countries are restricted from paying by credit card and will have to instead print out the receipt and take that to a Western Union location to pay that. We have full instructions on our website. They have very good details on the SEVIS fee website for doing that. After paying the SEVIS fee, your next step is to apply for your visa. Now, some of you may already be at this stage. You may already have your I-20 in hand. So this may be a little bit more helpful for you, but for those of you who have not submitted for your I-20 yet, this will be also extremely helpful for you to know kind of what the next steps are. The DS-160 is the Department of State's application form for a visa. On our website, we have links back to this, but there's the visa application fee, our application page, the frequently asked questions page, and then they have a DS-160 example form where you can find information about how to complete each of the sections. You would have to do a separate DS-160 for yourself and any dependents. So if you do have a spouse or children who will join you, you'll need to do that. I don't know if we have any Canadians or Bahamians who are on the call today, but if you are from Canada or the Bahamas, there is no visa stamp required for citizens of those two countries by an agreement between our countries, but you still have to have a valid I-20 and have paid the SEVIS fee to enter the US in an F1 student visa status. Now, after doing the DS-160, you'll schedule your visa interview. A lot of people, where we've seen problems is people scheduling interviews before they've done either the DS-160 or receive their I-20. And if your visa interview date comes and you don't have those documents and you haven't completed that, you're just going to be turned away at the gate at the embassy. They are not going to let you in. So what they're going to be looking for is kind of the ordering of things is get the I-20, pay the SEVIS fee, complete the DS-160, and then book your visa appointment in that ordering. Now, when you go to schedule your interview, it will be with the US Embassy or consulate that has jurisdiction over where you live. And that means you may be in a country where there's more than one consular location, and your province or your state is served by one particular consulate location. Do take a look to see about that. But you can also check the visa wait times. Now, in countries where there are multiple visa options through different consulates, like India has multiple locations, China, Nigeria, that we have more than one consular location, you may find better wait times available at the other consulates. So it may be that the one that's the most convenient to you has a very long wait time, whereas one that might be on the other side of the country or in a different province might have slightly faster wait times. But you can always check the visa wait times. It literally, if you Google US visa wait times, it will bring up the Department of State's official time page where you can enter the city location of the consulate that you want to visit, and it will give you the approximate wait times. And what you'll want to look for is interview required for students and exchange visitors, FMJ. That is the one that is the time for getting an appointment. Now, during the interview, you're going to have to take certain documents with you. And so the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk more about what to do in preparation for the interview, like what to take with you. And these are really general guidelines. You'll need to prepare your passport. Now, Casey already talked about that. You have to have a passport that's valid into the future. Generally, it needs to be valid 6 months into the future, beyond at least the date of entry to the US. So you want to make sure that you have a fairly recent passport. Now, it is not uncommon that you might have to renew your passport while in the US, which does happen and can be done after entry to the US. But you want a passport that's valid well into the future, beyond the date of your entry to the United States. You'll need to take with you that passport, the DS-160 visa application confirmation page, proof of your application fee payment. If you're required to pay before the interview, sometimes they require you to pay at the interview at the embassy, but most of the time you're paying through a dedicated bank account within the country that is set up with the US Embassy. You may have to take a copy of a passport style photo, which is 2 inches by 2 inches or 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters squared. You will have hopefully uploaded a digital photo when doing the DS-160, but if there were complications with it, you may have to take a physical copy of the photo with you to the appointment. You'll need to take your I-20 or your DS-2019 to the interview. You'll take proof of your SEVIS payment. So that's the SEVIS fee payment receipt. You'll take your admissions letter. Obviously, you got to show them that you were admitted to the University of Alabama. And then you need to take the same documents you used as your proof of funds to obtain your I-20 or your DS-2019. So if you have scholarship in combination with personal funds, you'll take those same documents that you scanned and submitted to our office with you to that visa interview. And so you want to make sure that that documentation is there. Now, additional documentation that may be requested, you may be asked to submit copies of your transcripts or bring your copies of your diplomas or your degrees or certificates from other schools that you've attended. They may ask you for copies of your standardized test scores, your TOEFL or your IELTS exam score, your ACT or your SAT score. So take copies of those with you. They're not going to keep these documents, but they may ask for them. They may look at them. Sometimes you have visa officers who wonder, do you really have the credentials to be able to begin a program of study in the United States? The next part is critical, is establishing your intent to return home. So one of the things that you will be kind of tasked with during the visa interview is proving your non-immigrant intent. And that means that you are showing that you have a plan to return home or at least depart the US after you complete your program of study. Now, US embassies and consulates are not supposed to be as strict with this interpretation with undergraduate applicants, but they will be looking at this. It's a requirement under the visa law that they assume that you are going to immigrate to the US permanently unless you prove otherwise. And if you can't prove that, then they are supposed to deny your visa application. It is the most common visa denial we see. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. They also want to know how you'll pay for your educational, living, and travel costs. So again, those scholarships, those award letters, your personal finances, your family funds, whatever you use to show that you have the ability to pay for that first year, you'll show that. But you may be asked, in addition to that, how do you plan to pay for years 2, 3, 4, for your undergraduate degree. If you have an ongoing scholarship that has 4 years of guaranteed funding, obviously that's going to be proof of 4 years of funding for your scholarships, for your tuition and everything. But you may have to address the question of how do you cover your living expenses beyond the first year. And that may be something where you have to show that your family has funding that will continue to be there for you. Like my mom and dad have a job with X company or X, office, and they earn X per year, and they're able to support me at this level per year for the entire time of my study. It sometimes is helpful to get a letter stating as much from your family. So these are things that you need to prepare for. And finally, look to the U.S. Embassy or consulate website to see if there's any additional things that they may require individually with that specific visa office. So sometimes they may ask for additional documentation that would not be normally included with a visa application. Just as a reminder, if you do have questions, please put them in the chat to everyone. Right now, Casey and Michelle are answering chat questions. We won't be unmuting anybody to ask questions. Now, for the visa interview prep, we have on our website, on the visa page about how to get your I-20, this link to 10 points to remember when applying for a non-immigrant visa. Now, you're going to find a million people who have posted YouTube videos or have blogs about how to get visas. Some of them are extremely helpful. Some of them might be not as nuanced. What I will always say is, there are those of us who work in the field, and this is our job. We do this every day. We see the types of visa issues that come up, and so we're able to kind of give some suggestions. A lot of times when friends or well-meaning people on YouTube recommend things, it will be based on their personal experience. And so if they say the visa interview will always follow this pattern, well, they've not attended every single visa interview that's ever existed. So they don't know how the visa officer will react in certain situations. But there are some great guidelines out there. So this 10 points to remember when applying for a non-immigrant visa, it goes through these specific 10 points with about a couple of paragraphs of detail on each topic, but truly this is very helpful. That ties to the home country is extremely important. So you're trying to prove that you're going to leave the US after you're done with your studies. And so that might be hard to do if you're 18 years old and you're coming to study for an undergraduate degree. What you need to do is show that you have family ties, that that your parents may have property that they are planning to give to you when you grow older, or that they have a family business that you'll take over once you get your business degree. These are types of things that show ties to the home country. Now, when you conduct the interview, obviously you're going to do it in English. Speaking for yourself, a lot of people give scripts. I have seen this out there, like say these words, and like students will memorize a speech to reply to a visa answer or visa officer's questions. And they may have memorized it so well that when the visa officer asks any question, they start that speech. Visa officers are very used to that. They know when to spot somebody who's been coached on how to answer questions, and especially when it doesn't really answer the question they've asked. So make sure that when you do this, you're speaking for yourself. You're answering the question asked, not overly preparing. You want to prepare, but you don't want to memorize, some speech somebody else has given. Know how your program of study is going to fit your overall career plans. Why are you studying computer science? Well, one day I want to be a programmer. Or why are you studying business? Well, my family has a business I'd like to take over and expand. These are the things that you want to kind of address. You don't have to have your whole life mapped out, but you want to be able to show how you have done your research. You kind of got a good idea about what it is you want to do. Keep in mind, life changes. You might change career paths. You may change majors while you're here in the US. That is okay. But at the time of the visa interview, you want this you want to have a kind of a good idea of what it is you're planning to do right now, even if maybe later your plans change somewhat. You want to be brief in your answers and maintain a positive attitude. Have that supporting documentation that you need for the visa officers. And remember that there are different requirements for different countries. So that comes up. The employment question, they may ask about your intent to work in the US after you are done studying. That is an option that you can pursue. I want to say just clearly kind of look at the information that they've given on this 10 points, but when you're answering those questions, right now you're trying to pursue a degree. And that's the most important thing. I know Michelle has answered the question already about can you work in the US? Yes, absolutely. You can work on campus as an F1 student visa holder or a J1 student visa holder with limited hours, but you are not able to work outside of campus without special permissions, but there are optional practical training and things like that that will allow you to work off campus and get some practical training. Yes, ma'am.
There is a question about remote work while here as an F1 student.
Nope. You are limited to work on campus. F1 students are limited to work on campus within the campus community, and that work must serve students. Like it must somehow serve the mission of the institution and its service to students. It could be, working in the cafeteria. It could be working in the library. But remote work for companies outside of the university or for companies back home would be considered not part of what's allowable under F1 students visa status. If you have dependents, or if they're going to remain home, you want to touch on that. But just throughout, just be honest in your answers. Go through this. It will help you greatly. The thing is, just go in and know that if there's questions asked, you can answer those questions and you should be fine. After the visa interview, there might be delays. Now, we don't see this as much with undergraduate students as we do with graduate students, but it is possible that you might be sent to what's called administrative processing, and that could require additional weeks, if not months, of review before your visa is approved. Now, we have a lot of information about this on our website, but a 221G refusal is what is usually what they call it. A 221G refusal is related to this administrative processing clearance. It just means that they're not able to approve your visa that same day, that they have to get that cleared before they can then approve your visa. They may ask you to include additional information about your program and about yourself before they can issue that visa. There's nothing that can be done to expedite this. I get that question over and over again, and I have for the last 17, 18 years that the administrative processing has been in place. And there's no one, not even the President of the United States, who can expedite that visa process. Now, it is, again, unlikely that you might get tagged for this. If you do get sent to administrative processing, it's typically resolved within 2 weeks. I think 95% of cases are resolved within 2 weeks. It's about 5% of cases that take a little bit longer to clear through. And we usually see this for students who are in STEM fields and at the graduate level. They don't usually scrutinize undergraduates as harshly, but it is a possibility. Once issued your visa, the validity dates and everything will really be tied to the agreements between the US and your home country. So what is there, you can go to the State Department website and look at visa reciprocity tables and look up your country and look up student visa or F1 visa. And it should tell you what is allowed to be issued. So just keep in mind, your country may issue a student visa to a US citizen for 1 year. If your country only issues a 1-year student visa to US citizens, then the US government will only issue a 1-year student visa to the students coming from that country. If it's a single entry visa, we issue a single entry visa. It's all about reciprocity. So the US government will only issue visas that are valid for the same period of time overall that the visa is issued to a US citizen going to that same country. That's where the reciprocity comes in. Now, a lot of people worry about that. They think, oh, my visa is going to expire before I'm going to graduate. I'll have to leave the country in the middle of my program. What I would like to clarify is that's not true. Actually, the US visa system works a little differently than it does in a lot of places. Your visa only has to be valid on the date that you're entering or re-entering the United States. So if you're issued a visa that is shorter than the program of study, don't panic. It's okay. That's normal. It just means that the next time you travel after it expires, you'll have to renew your visa during that period of travel, but you won't have to leave the US at all. You can remain in the US for the duration of your program. So once you get that visa, hopefully everything's good and you're ready to come. And so with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about what to do to prepare to come to the US.
Charter,
Yes.
before we move on to the next section, there was a question as to what can the school do, the University of Alabama, to assist in the visa process. You want to talk to that a bit?
So we can provide guidance and we can work with you if needed to reissue documents or to work with the admissions office on a deferral if necessary. We cannot, unfortunately, the embassy will not let us act on your behalf. We have very limited options when it comes to engagement with the embassy and the visa officer because they treat your visa application, the DS-160, as your personal application. And so while I have made thousands of inquiries, I know, Michelle, I copy you on those too, and you're welcome to submit, a request for an inquiry. I will always send the inquiry, but I always, in my inquiry, let them know, I know that you are not able to talk to me about this case. And I know that you can't expedite a case, but I will still, do that outreach. It is really limited in impact. Out of the thousands and thousands of those that I have sent, I get the same email responses, which is, I am sorry, we cannot speak to you about this student's visa application unless you're his attorney or you're the student, and have the student get in touch with us directly. So I wish it was a little better than that. I don't really have an answer for you that I think would make you feel better. The thing is, that is true of every university in the United States. Every university and college is going to be under the same restrictions. We can reach out to the embassy or consulate, but we're going to get the same kind of standard response. What we can do is kind of go through your next steps, your next options for reapplying if you have a visa denial, and talk to you about things like a deferral if it's going to delay you from coming to the university on time. So if that happens, let us know, and we will do our best. We know that that's always a devastating answer to get. A visa denial is always a very unfortunate thing. I think if you prepare well, hopefully you'll be successful in your visa interview, but sometimes you unfortunately get that visa denial, and it's just a matter of, okay, now let's take a step back and see if we have enough time for you to get another visa interview before the start of the semester, or if maybe we need to go ahead and start the deferral process so that you have more time to get your visa. Okay. So preparing to come to the capstone, once you have gotten your visa and everything's ready, there are a few things that I kind of want to go over, and this is not visa related as much as it is just getting here. One thing that needs to be done is you need to make your deposit. So when you are coming to the University of Alabama, you'll need to make a $200 non-refundable deposit for your enrollment. And you'll have instructions sent to your Crimson email account about this. You can also go to the gobama.ua.edu deposit page. You have to complete this step before you can apply for your orientation or for housing on campus. You'll want to register for orientation. Bama Bound has multiple sessions throughout the summer. So they start orientations for fall semester students in May. And it goes every week. They have usually 2 Bama Bound sessions every week throughout the summer. So they do like 20 something orientations throughout the summer. Just keep in mind that you need to plan yours no earlier than 30 days before your report date, because that is as early as you can arrive. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So you want to plan yours for kind of mid-July and later, any of those orientation dates if you're coming for the fall semester. For housing, it's really critical that you apply early if you're coming in fall. If on-campus housing is limited. So just to put it in perspective, we have about 39,000 students at the University of Alabama. But on campus, we only have beds for about 10,000 students. So you can do math and realize that 29,000 students do not get housing on campus. They try to reserve the 10,000 for freshmen, but our typical freshman class as of late has been more than 10,000 students. And so what that means is the housing applications begin to fill very early. You do want to, if you want to live on campus, if you're a freshman, you need to get the deposit done so that you can register for on-campus housing as soon as you can if you're a fall admit. We have had situations where students just did not find housing, and it's been very unfortunate. We do our best to help advocate, but once they've run out of spaces, once they've basically signed contracts with incoming freshmen, there's nothing more that can be done. There's no more beds that can be made available. You'll want to make sure you get your immunization and medical history submitted to the Student Health Center. That's required in your first semester. And then you'll also want to complete any math placement tests if you're a freshman. That will help determine what math course you need to be placed into. Other things to be aware of: don't forget your diploma and transcripts. You'll need to bring your certified copy of your diploma and final transcripts or mark sheets and any exam results to international undergraduate admissions after your arrival. Michelle's office usually will follow up with you if they need any official documents from you. But often you're getting an admission decision before, of course, you've completed your high school degree. And so, that will be something you follow up with. And prior to arrival, you can order a SIM card to be sent to you that can give you a US number so that the minute you land, you do have a US phone number to work with. I mentioned before, how early can you arrive? As F1 and J1 students, you can enter the United States up to 30 days before the report date listed on the I-20 or the DS 2019. So for those coming in August 23rd is the first day of classes. We have a report date that is 7 days earlier. So that is August 16th is the report date. That's a Wednesday. And that means 30 days prior to August 16th is when you can enter the United States. That would be roughly July 17th. Now, having said that, even though you can come very early, be aware there is no on-campus housing until the dorms open up in the middle of August. So if you're arriving early, it's great, you can get settled in, but you will have to seek temporary housing through hotels or through accommodations outside of campus. Unfortunately, we have summer programs, and the dorms are occupied for those summer programs until they move out in early August. And then facilities goes through and cleans all the dorm spaces and does repairs in preparation for move-in in the middle of August. So that does mean that there is no temporary accommodations on campus. There is sometimes early move-in available to students who are coming in August, but the early move-in, I think, is no more than about 10 days before the start of classes. So you really do need to make sure to time your arrival well. Otherwise, you need to prepare for temporary housing and to take care of that. Getting to Tuscaloosa, Birmingham Shuttlesworth Airport in Birmingham, Alabama is our closest major airport. The airport code is BHM. You can fly in there. That's probably your easiest option. And then you can take a shuttle from the airport. Our office does try to arrange a few shuttle pickups for free. Usually the Sunday and Monday before classes start on August 23rd. For those arriving earlier than that, you would have to arrange for a paid shuttle service. There are 3 major companies that offer shuttle services for a fee. Some of them are, one of them is a little bit more affordable for one-way destinations, but they're on a fixed schedule, so they're picking up multiple people at the same time. The other 2 are more of a taxi service, so it's a little bit more expensive, but you would be more than likely the only rider on that. There are also one shuttle that goes all the way to Atlanta Airport. Atlanta typically is cheaper to fly into, but it is a very long drive. It's over 3 hours by shuttle. So it will take you a lot longer. And if you've been flying for 24 hours already, those last 3 hours are pretty miserable. So you may want to try to get all the way to Birmingham and take the shorter shuttle service. Now, on-campus housing, I've already talked about it. UA housing is, well, as of the last count was 8,600 residents. I believe with Tutwiler coming on, we're closer to about 10,000, along with a couple of apartment style options that were brought up. So I need to update this slide, but we have 33 residence halls. Like I said, it is definitely taking up very fast. They're gorgeous dorm rooms. They're very nice. Housing is extremely wonderful, but you'll want to make sure to take care of this pretty early. And again, these links will be shared with you. And once admitted, you should be getting prompts to do that. One option for you, it's very limited, but we do have the Rotary House. This information is on our website. The Rotary House holds 15 people. We try, and that's under the International Student Scholar Services Office. But it's done through housing. So housing controls the building, but we work with them on the selection of students to be placed in this. And it's an intentional community, it's a living, learning community. So with that, I have off-campus housing information as well for older students. You may want to look at apartments off campus. If you later on, of course, in your academic career, you might look to off-campus housing. One thing I would really state here is go through the off-campus housing website for information and guides about selecting a lease. We really want to stress not to sign a lease prior to your arrival. And the reason I say that is that you do not want to be stuck in a lease. It is a contract. It is unbreakable. Once you sign a contract, you owe that company or that apartment money every month for the duration of the contract period. So if you get here and you decide, I don't like this apartment, I want to change, unfortunately, it's too late once you sign the contract, because now you're legally bound to that contract. We have had students who have been stuck with very bad leases or places where they just didn't want to be. It was much further away from campus than they thought it would be, or it wasn't as nice as they expected it to be. And they were stuck with it for a whole year because they signed the lease before they ever arrived here. So if you will be living off campus, please be assured we have tons of off-campus housing options. There is no lack of apartments in the city of Tuscaloosa. So you'll have no problem finding an apartment once you get here. It may not be the ideal apartment, but don't be, I guess, fooled into signing a contract before you've seen the place, the location. Now, campus and community resources, and I think this might be my last slide with any information. Prior to your arrival, I would really say go to the visit.ua.edu page to find out more about the campus. It gives you a good overview of our history. It gives a good virtual tour of campus. And then you can find out more about the city of Tuscaloosa through visittuscaloosa.com. It has like information about restaurants and festivals and museums and nature trails and just all the great things that we have around here. It would be a great way for you to kind of get an introduction about what to expect once you've moved to Tuscaloosa. And just as a reminder, this is how you can get in touch with us. If you have questions about your visa, about the I-20 process, anything like that, you can always reach out to us at matt@international@ua.edu, and we will get back in touch with you. So with that, I am going to end my slides and stop sharing. And we can address any additional questions that have come up.
Thank you, Chara. We do have a lot of questions in the chat box. Casey and I have been answering some of them. A couple of the questions, do Canadian students need to submit the DS-160 form?
No. So the DS-160 is only if you're applying for a visa, if you're a Canadian citizen, because Canada and the Bahamas have that visa agreement where no visa is required. If you hold a Canadian passport, what you have to do is you get your I-20, you'll have to have the I-20, you'll have to pay the SEVIS fee, and at the port of entry, whether that's through the airport or through a land crossing, you'll show the I-20 and your admissions documents and any supporting financial documents, just like you would at a visa interview. And you'll pay for an I-94 fee. I think they make you pay like $6 or something like that for a I-94 fee. And then that's taken care of at the port of entry. So you will receive more or less an entry notation that you came in on F1 status and an I-94 that is a multi-year I-94, and that's it. So no visa application, no DS-160. Having said that, occasionally you'll have a Canadian who is married to a non-Canadian, and for their non-Canadian spouse to be able to get a visa, the Canadian has to get a visa. And so that is the one big exception. And you think, oh, when would that come up? I actually had it come up last year. So for one of our Canadian citizens. So those who are raising their hands, we weren't planning to unmute anybody. If you can, just drop your question in the chat. We're trying to get through all those.
One other question that came up was CPT.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that is and how does remote work fit into that?
So curricular practical training is CPT. F1 students have just a couple of different work authorization types, and I can drop a link to the student employment section here where you can read about all the different kinds of work authorizations for students. Believe me, it's a very long and detailed page. So CPT is curricular practical training. It's typically used for internships and work authorization done during a student's degree program. It can be done during the academic year in the fall or spring semesters, but most often is done in the summer. There are restrictions on it. You can only work in something that is related to your field of study. So it has to be directly tied to your major. On top of that, we require, because it is curricular, it has to be tied to a course study. So if you're an undergraduate student during the fall and spring semesters, you have to be enrolled full time, and that requirement does not change if you take CPT. So typically, if you're doing CPT, maybe with a local company or maybe with remote work, it might be possible, but it would be limited to the typical 20 hours per week that you're allowed during the academic year. In the summer, it can be authorized for full time, but it has to, again, be tied to a course credit that you're enrolling in, either through an academic course or through the co-op program. Anyway, you can read more about CPT on our website. It's something that is available to students, but I need to make clear, no one can do it until they've completed one academic year in F1 status as a full-time student. So CPT is not available to students when they first start their studies, nor is OPT. No off-campus work authorization is allowed until after 2 semesters, and that's by regulation.
A couple of questions on housing. As far as the freshmen need to live on campus, is there a way to do exemptions and live with relatives that are currently in and around the area of Tuscaloosa or Birmingham?
Yes, it is possible. The exceptions are through the housing website to be exempted. They typically, the exemptions are for those who are going to live with relatives. However, I will say if they're in the Birmingham area, please keep in mind, Birmingham is an hour drive away. Like, I would never suggest a freshman or an undergraduate student to try to commute 2 or 2.5 hours per day, especially if they don't have a reliable mode of transportation. It is a very long distance to drive to get to the university. It is best for you, even if it does add cost, to be near campus. It will outweigh itself in the amount of gas and, and insurance and car expenses that you'll have. But, you know, of course, that is up to you. But look at the housing website. They do have information about how to waive out of the on-campus housing requirement for freshmen.
Okay, thank you. And can we, for everybody on the presentation, just clarify how scholarship fits into the funding? How do they calculate that amount? If they were awarded a scholarship, how much still they have to show as personal proof of funds? And what the timeline is to apply for the I-20? Should they wait until scholarship is issued, or should they start now?
I can kind of address this, and Casey, feel free to add. So if you receive a scholarship, let's say you receive the top scholarship, the presidential scholarship, and it's awarded, what, $25,000 per year for 4 years, correct? I'm asking you, Michelle, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes. So scholarships are awarded for 4 years as long as students maintain the academic record that they're required to maintain.
So if the scholarship, for instance, is $25,000 per year, and that goes towards the tuition, then we calculate that value at $25,000 we're looking at 1 year of expenses. So we look at that value as the single year value of the scholarship. So if it's 25,000, it's equal to 25,000. That would leave the remaining $26,662 to be shown through personal funds to cover the remaining tuition fees and living expenses that are estimated for international students. So when you're looking at that, you know, we do have like a full breakdown of how those expenses play out, but that's what we're looking for. Is we're trying to make sure that you have, you know, all of the living expenses covered. And our living expenses, we are a majority graduate student population and older undergraduate population. So they usually live off campus. So our housing expenses are not based on dorms. It's based on the cost for living off campus for a typical single room out of a multi-room apartment. And the meals are based off of USDA guidelines for minimum grocery expenses. So not the meal plan, but they're fairly similar. Like when you compare it to the dorm room costs and the meal plan costs, it comes out about the same. And when you look at this chart and you look at the that I've shared in the chat, and when you look at that chart and the explanation of those costs, you'll see we've included the cost range for dorms on campus and for the meal plans.
Okay. There are questions on scholarships in the chat, so I want to clarify some things. UA offers merit-based scholarships only. We do not offer needs-based scholarships to international students. If you have any emails or information on your MyBama about FAFSA or anything like that, please understand that doesn't apply to international students. You have to be a US citizen or a permanent resident in order to apply for FAFSA, which is federal financial aid. The merit-based scholarships we offer cover the tuition. The highest award covers full tuition for a year. However, that doesn't cover your living expenses, your fees, your college textbooks, your health insurance, room and board. So you still have to show funds for those expenses. So we do not have what it's most people refer to as a full ride scholarship. There is no such thing. And there might be some other universities out there that do offer that, but many of them offer a full tuition scholarship. So UA is one of those universities where we offer full tuition. So your tuition is paid, but you still have to cover the remaining expenses. And for extracurricular activities, I think I saw a question on that. There are no scholarships for extracurricular activities to my knowledge. So if you play in the band or you want to play sports, recreational sports, UA doesn't do scholarships for those kind of activities.
Now, the music department, I did see a musical instrument question. So yeah, there are different things. There are band activities, but then there's, there might be departmental level scholarships, which are available. But typically those I see at the graduate level more so than undergraduate level. So for master's and PhD students, you would just have to look at the department specific scholarships. And I'm going to drop into the chat a separate link to kind of a catch-all page. So just on this, it's on our website, on the International Student Scholar Services website, with information about undergraduate scholarships, but it links back out to each of the colleges and their college specific scholarships. But my understanding is when you apply for a scholarship, generally, the scholarships office looks at every available scholarship that you could potentially qualify for, including the big scholarships and then smaller departmental scholarships or any other minor scholarships that you may qualify for based on your demographics. And so generally when you're applying through the same scholarships office portal that everybody else would apply for.
So at this point, the scholarships applications are closed because all the deadlines have passed. So all admitted students are reviewed for scholarships based on what's on record. So the information you submitted in your admission application will be reviewed by the admissions office, by the scholarships office within enrollment management, and then by the departmental scholarship offices. So let's say you have applied for an engineering major. Your file will also be reviewed by the engineering college to see if you are eligible and qualify for engineering departmental scholarship. All consolidated, when I say consolidated, like every scholarship that you're eligible for and have been offered, all the consolidated scholarship announcements are coming out in early March. So please give scholarships office time to review applications. They are at peak season of reviews, so it may take a little bit longer. So please be patient. Don't send several emails in the same day because it just makes their job harder. So allow them 48 hours to respond to emails. And if you haven't heard anything by mid-March, you can contact scholarships. Also, all this information about scholarships is available in your MyBama account. Make sure you set up your MyBama and you check your email regularly. All scholarship offers are sent to your UA Crimson address. So nothing will come to your Gmail account, to your Yahoo account, or any kind of other personal email. Everything is going to your UA Crimson email address. So make sure you check those regularly.
So I've had a lot of questions in the chat that I'm seeing about on-campus employment. And again, I'm going to put in the on-campus employment section link in our student employment page. To clarify, F1 and J1 students can work on campus up to 20 hours per week. There has been a number of questions about what qualifies. Again, it's work that takes place on the university campus that is somehow student serving or would be serving the university. So, you wouldn't be able to work at the construction company that might be building a new building because that's not on-campus employment, even though it's taking place on campus. But you could work at the cafeteria, the library, for departments. You could work in tutoring. All of these are considered on-campus jobs. Somebody asked about tutoring on campus. Yes, that is on-campus employment and it's allowed. Its maximum is 20 hours per week. But I've had a number of people say, can I cover all of my expenses with this? No, it will supplement your expenses, of course, but on-campus employment is typically paid at a rate of about $7.25 per hour. up to around $10 per hour for certain positions. But $7.25 per hour is the federal minimum wage, and that is the minimum wage paid to student workers. And so if you're working 20 hours per week, per month, you're going to earn about $600. So just keeping that in mind, you're making about $150 per week or $600 per month. It will help with your personal expenses, but it will not pay for tuition and fees. It will never come close. Even if you find a higher paying on-campus job that pays like $10 per hour, the difference is still not enough. That's about $800 per month. It may help greatly with your personal expenses, your groceries, or anything like that, but it will not cover your tuition and fees. Do we have other questions in the chat that you wanted to address?
Charter, we had one. So would my documents be submitted at customs at the airport rather than a consulate, since I do not have to apply for the DS-160, or would I have to show up to the airport office with my documents prior to flying to Birmingham? I'm also a Nexus card holder. Would I need to bring that with me as well?
So the Nexus card, take it with you. It's not going to change really anything regarding your entry to the U.S. as an F1 student. You really need to be showing your F1 documents and your passport coming through. Typically, the documents are reviewed prior to departure from an airport in Canada. So what you'll see is, as you fly to the U.S., if you've never been to the U.S., we have kind of a pre-clearance by a lot of customs locations at the major international airports that then link to the US. So if you're flying, from Lagos, or if you're flying from Paris, or you're flying from Toronto or from Istanbul as a direct flight into the US, there's a pre-clearance, like an officer who will look at all your documents there before you enter the US. And then typically upon arrival at the US, it's the CBP officer, Customs and Border Protection officer, who will actually review those documents again, ask maybe a couple of questions. What's your purpose for entering the US? And then stamp you for entry into the US. So it's likely to happen at both locations. You're going to be doing it at the airport before you depart your home country, and then again upon arrival at the first destination, at the first airport of arrival into the US. So if your flight to Birmingham it goes through Atlanta first, you're going to be doing all of the formal documentation in Atlanta before then landing in Birmingham.
I also have a question about online remote jobs. I have a part-time job, which is online. Could I continue working remotely while studying at UA?
It's not really allowed under F1 regulations. The work, so F1 students, your primary purpose is to study, and there are some pretty hard restrictions on work. Now, work is allowed, again, on campus, 20 hours per week for the university, for services to the university, and work is allowed off campus under CPT or OPT, or one of a couple of other circumstances that may come up, but it is extremely limited, and again, has to be related to your curriculum. So work off campus for a remote job overseas is not really allowed. It would be considered, you're doing physical work for an employer overseas. It could be seen as a violation of your F1 status. That question has come up many times, and unfortunately, it is one that is not generally allowed under F1 regulations. Part of your purpose here will be study, and study full time. And that's why there's that 20-hour per week limit on the work to be done on campus, is so that your purpose in the US never moves into full-time work versus full-time study. If you want to be a full-time employee in the US, you would have to seek out an employment visa and sponsorship for an employment visa. So that is unfortunately the restrictions that are there. I would make sure that you are following the regulations. There's just a few rules really for F1 students. It's, study full time and don't work without permission. Those are kind of the big two. And most students will be fine for maintaining their visa status. But that we have very extensive information on our website about the F1 and J1 student work regulations and allowances. You just read through that, of course, and we go over that during orientation and send out reminders regularly to our students throughout their academic program here. Somebody asks about a loan. Can we recommend a loan? No, I can't recommend a specific loan. There are companies that provide student loans. We have a couple that were listed on our website, but these are all external providers. We're not endorsing any one company or promoting any one company. Some of them require co-signers. Some of them do not require co-signers that are US citizens or US permanent residents. What I would say is look at that information, look at it carefully, and be very aware of what you're doing when you're signing on to a student loan, because it does have to be repaid. And a lot of students in the US end up with a lot of student loan debt that they have to pay off for many, many years after their graduation. So I always caution against student loans whenever I can.
Char, do you know anything about the math placement test? I know I shared the link in the chat box to information that's on the UA website. Mm-hmm. So the student that was interested in that can go look through that. But to my knowledge, every student needs to take the math placement test unless they have ACT or SAT test scores on file that can exempt them from that.
Yes, that's my understanding as well. I just know it's done online. You're able to do that. I would caution you against any kind of help during your test done online. I have unfortunately had a student who got a little help from his friend, and then he tested so high they wanted to put him in upper level calculus classes, and he really needed to be in basic level algebra classes. Like, he really did not have the foundational math necessary to enter into calculus 3. So, be honest with the test. It will only hurt you, because they will force you into the higher level test or courses if that's the case. But if you have questions, you can reach out to the math department. They kind of control that test. You can also talk with your academic advisors that you will be assigned to. Each college has a different academic advisor unit. Now, I would not recommend reaching out to them before you've been fully admitted. Like, strongly state, don't reach out to the advising offices about recommendations on your academic advising, because you cannot choose classes until you've been admitted to the university. And you're still going to have to go through your BAMA bound orientation before you can select classes, because that's part of that. But you can find advising offices for each of the colleges through the link that I've just sent. And you can go to their individual websites and look at kind of who is advising for each of the majors, because usually it's tied to the major by college. And you can work with them. They can usually answer those freshman related questions. And of course, they cover all of that during Bama Bound as well. Like, once you get on campus for Bama Bound, they're going to talk about all of these things, like the math test and about any other placement tests. And then their whole portion of the day is dedicated to you seeing your academic advisors and building out your academic schedule during Bama Bound. So it's critical to plan to do that, because it sets you up for a very good foundation for your first semester of study, meaning build in some time before the start of classes to attend the Bama Bound sessions.
I
Okay.
have a lot of questions too about my BAMA. So in order to get the I-22, you will need to be able to use your My BAMA credentials to log in to submit your documents. So if you're having trouble, for instance, like accessing your email, when you log into MyBama, you'll find the quick links section, and it will have a place for you to access your UA email. If you're having trouble with Duo, Michelle just sent a link in the chat about contacting OIT, and they can help you with that. But you'll need to make sure that you can access MyBama as soon as possible, because you'll definitely need to use it for getting your I-20.
And if you can't, there are some tutorials on the page, on the link that I shared, about how to install Duo. You have to have Duo. UA uses a two-factor authentication method, so you cannot bypass Duo. If you don't install the app either on your phone or on your laptop, tablet, whatever, you won't be able to log into MyBama. So you have to do that. If you do run into technical issues, even after you've followed the steps in the tutorials, please email the IT department, admission, ISSS, any other office on campus cannot help you with technological issues. Only the IT department can do that, and they can reset passwords and provide you some better way to troubleshoot your issues. If you cannot locate your MyBama ID, or please refer back to emails that you've received. You should have received all that information about 24 hours after you received your admission email. So all that information is somewhere in your emails. Please make sure you go back and check. And that's all you need to set up your MyBama account. From this point on, most of the communications are done through your MyBama UA Crimson email address. So it's very important that you guys get logged in and are familiar with the MyBama system and portal.
Regarding the enrollment deposits before the I-20, oh, Charter just answered it, never mind. Well, if anyone else has questions about it, like, no, like.
And another thing about the enrollment deposit, keep in mind, it's non-refundable. Once you pay it, it's paid. We cannot give it back.
Yeah. So if the question had been placed that, should I pay it before I get my I-20 or before I get my visa? If you have any doubts and you want to wait until after the visa has been approved to pay the deposit, you can. Just keeping in mind, of course, that everything else for your Bama bound and for your housing is tied to paying that deposit. So, hopefully it all goes very smoothly, but at the same time, I do understand the hesitation of paying a big deposit fee before you know if you'll even be able to enter the US. Yeah, so if you want to wait, that's perfectly fine.
And regarding the I-20, we're not asking you to show like pay anything. We just need to see proof of funding. So, we can give you your I-20 without payment. You're not paying us your tuition. We just need to see that you have those funds available.
There's still some questions on the math test. Please reach out to the math department if you have an SAT test score or ACT, and see if you're still required to take the online placement test. We can make those judgments in the admission or in ISSS, and that's a very departmental type issue that you need to talk to them about it. All right, well, if there are no more questions, we want to thank Charter, Casey, ISSS. Thank you guys for joining us today. And hopefully we can see you on campus in the summer or fall. We are looking forward to meeting you in person in Tuscaloosa. If you do have questions in the meantime for admissions, you can reach out to me at intladm@ua.edu for any I-20 related questions, orientation, visa, housing. To some degree, you can reach out to Charter and his team at international@ua.edu. Thank you so much for joining us. We will email a presentation, a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, and hopefully a link to the recording so you can refer back to all this information. Hope you all have a great day, night, depending on where you're located. Thank you very much. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, y'all.